Okay, well, we'll kick off then because it's just after 4. So first of all, good afternoon and welcome to this briefing on the All-Ireland Screenwriting Prize. Some introductions first. I'm Janine Cobain and I'm absolutely delighted to be working with Stellify on this fantastic competition. And joining me today are the Joint Managing Directors of Stellify Media, Kieran Doherty and Matthew Worthy. We're going to share details today on this brand new Screenwriting Prize, which is supported by Stellify Media and Sony Pictures Television in partnership with Northern Ireland Screen. And as we go through the information, please pop any queries that you have into the Q&A chat box, and we'll make our way through as many as we can at the end. So as I'm sure you know, Stellify Media is an award-winning production company famed for their factual entertainment television shows such as Flinch, Celebrity Snoop Dogg, There's No Place Like Tyrone, and of course, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and Blind Date. And they're now taking that success and experience in production into scripted drama, which is why we're here today. So firstly, Kieran, why the move into scripted drama?
The move into scripted drama is for a very simple reason, in that we think we can sell drama. So as we've been making entertainment shows and factual entertainment shows for quite a while now, and then just chatting with the commissioners at those channels, it's come up because we have the infrastructure, we have all the connections with Sony, we've got a great relationship with Screen, and cast and crew and things like that. It's been asked, had we ever considered it? And we hadn't for a long time, but now we have. So we think there's an opportunity to sell a very specific type of drama in the UK and internationally, and now seems like a good chance or a good time to jump in and have a crack at it. So that's why. Yeah, that's the reason why we think there's an opportunity for business.
Lovely. And Matt, ideally, what are you hoping to achieve with this screenwriting initiative?
Well, it's exactly what Kieran's describing, really. We simply hope to achieve a commission, a returnable drama series coming to Northern Ireland, and that will keep coming back. We hope to achieve a commission, and we think this is the smartest way of doing it. We would, wouldn't we? But we do. We think this is the smartest way of doing it, getting ideas into this very specific brief that we think we've got an opportunity to sell into. So that's what I'm hoping to achieve.
Lovely. And so, as Kieran and Matt touched on there, the brief for the initiative is very clear. We're looking for crime-led, high-concept, returnable drama that can be filmed on the island of Ireland. And although at first that might seem quite prescriptive, there's actually a wealth of possibilities in terms of formats at work. Kieran, could you give us some examples of TV drama that hits this brief?
I can't. Matt, will you do that 1 second, just while I sort out my son? I'm so sorry. I'll be
yeah. Well, we stuck them down into, obviously, there are kind of genres within this quite strict brief. So as Janine says, this is returnable crime drama. It's contemporary. It's not period, and it's high in concept. We're looking for story machines, basically. Concepts that can just keep pushing stories through them. Now, they can be split into certain genres. So there could be a returnable mini-series or stripped event, and the examples of those, really great recent examples of Guilt, that was made for BBC Scotland, and Blood, which was made for Virgin Media and Channel 5. Both those are small strip series, but are both coming back as well. So we would consider ones like that, but also high volume daytime. So the Mallorca Files is a great example. Father Brown Investigates. So it's the ones that, those high volume daytime propositions as well. We're looking for series arc, prime time. So that is the more fanciful ones of the world, the Broadchurches and the Line of Duties, etc. We'd also consider those because they sell well around the world and they return. And then finally, I guess the last genre within our brief is that closed episode sort of prime time thing. So Evil, An Alibi is a great example recently, but Mentalist, Death in Paradise, Criminal on Netflix, which is really smart in the way that it reduces cost by just having it in that one area, and then just having the great cast each series. All those different types of returnable crime drama we are actively looking for and excited to see and think we can pitch in.
Brilliant. Is there anything that's not going to work, Kieran? I don't know whether you want to jump in on that one, or Matt, if you've got any ideas. What's not going to work for you for this?
Our brief is, like you said, Janine, it's very specific. I mean, there's lots of places you can take it, but it is very, very specific. So anything that sits outside of that brief, doesn't matter, even if it's, it could be the best piece of writing going, it could be a brilliant idea. It's just not going to work for us. We know what the buyers are after us to bring them, essentially. So anything that sits outside of the sort of tight confines of that brief will be useless to us. We won't be able to sell it. So, we wouldn't be the right home for it anyway. So we would be saying, the brief is quite specific. If you can stick within the brief, you can be as inventive as you want within that brief, but stick within the brief, then we'd be interested in looking at it. That's basically the thing. Everything else is for someone else, I think.
Lovely, thank you. So just moving on to a bit of the detail then, the submission process. So you'll need to, the entry's free for starters, and the submission window, you'll get a link around tomorrow as a follow-up with details on how to supply, but for those who can't wait, the details will actually be up on the Stellify website tonight after 5 o'clock, and it'll be hidden under press releases if you wanted to go there. So it opens officially tomorrow, and it closes on the 15th of January. So you've got a good stretch to get your ideas in. For the submission, you'll need to send a pitch for your idea, no longer than a page, but you should be able to sell the concept in just a couple of sentences, really. And along with your one-page pitch, include a sample of your script writing, so we can see what sort of level of writability that you have. To enter, you must be over 18 on the closing date, the 15th of January 2021, and you must either have been born or currently reside in Northern Ireland or the Republic of Ireland. And so what we're looking for here, we will select a maximum of 6 ideas and develop those, and ask you to develop those into a treatment. And we'll look at those, and the best of those, the top 3 of those ideas, we will ask you to further develop them into a pilot script. Both of those things will be paid. So the 6 finalists will be paid to write a treatment, and the maximum of 3 pilot scripts will also receive a fee for writing that script. So I can see there's a couple of questions dropping into the box there. So let's have a look and we'll see if we can answer any of these. So there's a question there, and I'll let you guys answer these because I can't see the screen and read the questions. So Susan Connolly's asked, would you consider a crime drama with a cross-genre element, e.g. crime with a sci-fi element, or crime with a fantasy element, or crime with a horror element?
Short answer would be yeah. I mean, it's worth keeping in mind. Part of the brief is that, we say high volume, low cost, but you would be making it, or we would be attempted to make it here. So it's not going to be a massive expensive budget. And so you should consider that when you're coming up with the stuff. And then the other thing that Matt and I are really keen on, Janine, we spoke about this too, is that we're more interested in hearing your story engine than the stories in the early stages. So what is the story engine that's going to generate different stories every single time? So it can run for series after series after series, things like that. So if you have cross genre, that's grand, as long as it fits within that remit and it's not, Babylon 5 that we'll never be able to afford to make, then yeah, we'd be happy to have a look.
Lovely.
So an example of that story engine would be something like Quantum Leap, I suppose, in which it's obviously a fantasy narrative, but it could all be filmed very easily and cheaply in a contemporary setting. So certainly we'd consider it, but it would have to still sit within those guidelines of the brief.
Sinead's asked how many submissions can each writer make, and I can answer that one. We can take a number of ideas, but each one needs to be on a separate application. So one idea, one submission, but you could use the same piece of writing to submit with each piece. Rosa's asked, what do you class as contemporary, i.e. do you accept stories that are set in the Troubles?
Don't really want to go down the Troubles route if it's at all possible. Although again, if it's about the Troubles, it's not really something I think we're going to be able to sell. It could be brilliant, and it's not even an expression of taste. It's not what we're being asked for. So,
but just to give the contemporary thing a bit of context, that's just another way of saying we won't be considering things we don't think broadcasters can afford to pay us to make. That's period pieces just feel like they're going to be more expensive. That was why we're pushing people in that direction. If that makes sense. So where the cutoff is in terms of contemporary, just think about it as cost. How much are you having to recreate something that doesn't exist?
Lovely. And there's one here that says, what about crime with a paramilitary element background? Is that something that we could sell?
We could look at it, yeah. I mean, the thing is, it can't be about the Troubles. Yeah. Because fundamentally, part of the joy of this is that if we find the right story engine, and we can get a decent treatment, get it to a first draft, and then, God willing, sell it into the UK, is that it can be then sold with our contacts through Sony internationally. So you could imagine there will be a French version of this, there will be a Italian version, a German version. So if it's about the Troubles, we're slightly snookered. But if it's about paramilitaries and crime and things like that, well, it just becomes crime, and it exists everywhere. So you can maybe sort of look at it from that point of view. But Matt and I, our ambition is that this thing, it will have international appeal. Other territories, other countries will want to make their own version of this particular thing. Lovely.
Jenny's asked in relation to the sample, will it be a sample of previous screenwriting or a sample of the script for the competition? So Jenny, an example of previous work, because the whole point of this is to develop a pilot script. So we wouldn't expect you to have a script for this idea already written. Ross has asked, would you accept stuff in the espionage genre?
Yes. Spies, class.
Simple. And Mairead's asked if the sample of writing should be, oh gosh, sorry, the question's moved then, I've lost it. So the samples of writing, should they be crime drama, or would you just be happy to read something that showed an example of what level they're at?
I think it's whatever you're most comfortable letting us read, whatever you think sort of demonstrates your ability as a writer. It can be any genre, it can be anything. Because again, it's not like, again, it's not about taste in this. This is the product that we're trying to sell. But if you've got a script that really speaks to you, speaks to your voice as a writer, we would much prefer to read that and get a sense of what your strengths are. If that makes sense.
Lovely. And Griffin's asked, what running time is anticipated per episode of the finished commission? Are you looking for just sort of hour-long TV episodes, or are you open to other ideas?
No, it'll be when we go to pilot script and we move from there. This is most likely going to be 60 minutes or a commercial hour, one of the two.
Lovely. Ross has asked there, how long should the writing sample be? Should it be a script of the pitched idea, which we touched on earlier? In terms of the writing sample, we haven't put a minimum length on, but we're writing for 60 minutes of TV. So I think if you have a sample of writing that sits around that, then that would be a good fit to put in as your sample of writing. Would you agree?
Yeah, and if you don't feel like that you can't enter, submit what you think is the best calling card of your writing, I'd say.
Yeah.
And it's
your chance to sell yourself is the important thing. Yeah. Whatever you think best sells yourself, and help support the idea.
Yeah, and then the other part as well is we don't want at this early stage where this is just you're submitting an idea and you're submitting previous work. We don't want anybody to go to an awful lot of trouble because this bit isn't paid. Once we pick things and we start paying for work, then it's fair for us to ask you to do a bit of work. But in the early stages, this stage here, it's your pitch can be a paragraph of a story engine, like a Quantum Leap or The Mentalist or Blacklist, or there's all those sort of shows that can run for series after series after series that just generate story. You just plug and play a story out the other end, and that's a paragraph. I know it's harder to get something down to a paragraph than to write a script, but it's thinking time rather than banging the keys. So it's that plus whatever you think will sell you best, and then fire it in. And if we see something in it, if we like the story engine, is when we'll come and say, okay, let's talk about how it goes on from there. So I wouldn't stress about these bits. Have the engine. All we need to see is the kernel of something brilliant in that hook, and if we see that, then we'll be, home in a boat.
Mm-hmm. Lovely. There's a couple of questions that are kind of linked here, so I'll sort of bring them both together. Sam said, considering 2020, should pitches veer towards less dark material? And then on the opposite of that, Sarah's asked, how dark can it be?
It's, you know, a good idea. Whatever the story engine is, if it lends itself to being super dark, let's look at it and see. If it's super bright, let's look at it and see. You know, it's only what we think we can sell. So if it's a good idea, we know crime's going to sell. We know crime sells internationally. We know there's an appetite for it in the UK and Ireland. If it's a really good crime story with a really good hook, and it can run forever until the broadcasters get tired asking us to make it, then that's what we're looking for. You can bounce in anything you think might fit that brief. Everything outside of that brief, no matter how good it is, it's no good to us. A different drama company is your best bet because they maybe sell those sort of shows. But for us in this particular bit, whatever you think fits.
If we got a description of Death in Paradise during this competition, we would take it. If we got a description of Line of Duty, we would take it. They're both very clever story engines, but obviously on the different side of light and dark. The light and dark thing won't be the reason that we can take these ideas forward. It's more about, we'll keep saying the word story engine over and over. That is the most important thing.
TV piece of nonsense.
But again, I think
you know what it means. You know what I mean when I say it. It's absolute rubbish. But you know, it's what we don't want is to have a pitch that comes in and says there's this character and they go through this journey, and that's no good to us at this early stage. We need to know, here's a precinct or here's an engine, and we can go, God, yeah, that could run forever. That's really exciting and it's really interesting. You can see, you know, every story is going to be different just by its very nature. That's exciting. Let's work that up. That's the sort of stuff, story engine that we're looking for.
And I think this might fall into story engine as well, but Conleth's asked, are supernatural elements allowed, or is that straying too far?
No, fair in. We were talking, like, I mean, it's an old show. I watched it back and it doesn't massively stack up, but an old show called Brimstone from, I think it was like the 90s, about a New York cop that goes to hell for killing somebody, and all these demons break out of hell in modern day New York. And the devil does a deal with him that he can go back to Earth. If he kills all the demons, then he can have his life back. And that only ran for one series, so what do I know about it? I really liked it. But as a supernatural thing, you're like, oh, that's really interesting. And then Supernatural, the show itself, which has been running for 8 or 9 seasons, I think, where they're on the hunt for the dad and they're just killing demons. If it's a good idea, if it makes us go, God, that's pretty exciting, we jump in that.
Evil on Alibi is a great one to watch in that regard as well, which is exactly in that area, and again is something we would have taken, I'm sure of it, because it's a very clever story engine.
Yeah, and there's also like really good light-hearted stuff. I went back through all the stuff I used to watch when I was growing up, just to see, does any of it stack up? And then I don't know how many of you remember, but there was a show called Remington Steele with Pierce Brosnan before he became Bond, and that was, you know, it was a female private investigator who no one took seriously, so she invents a fake boss called Remington Steele, and Pierce Brosnan is the con man thief who just adopts that persona, and then she's stuck with him because she can never say that he isn't. Otherwise, her detective agency falls apart, and that's a great light-hearted story engine that you just know is going to run forever and ever and ever and ever. You know, to the point where he couldn't be Bond. It ran for so long. So there's the light-hearted, and then you have the I'm shooting demons in the face in New York, the dark end, and both are equally exciting.
And that kind of answers Susan's question as well about yes, she agrees spies are class and our private investigators also class. So yes, I guess the answer to that question is. There's a couple of people asked if 2 writers can collaborate, and I think what we've sort of said there is yes. However, there'll only be one set of fees per idea. So providing you're happy to share them, then I think the answer from us would be yes, we'd look at it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So Jenny says that she's written mainly for stage. So her previous examples of work would be theatre. Could she submit one of those as an example of a writing, or would you prefer a screenplay?
No, that's grand. You shouldn't, anything you've written that you like, send in.
Yeah.
That you think sort of speaks. Doesn't have to be in the genre, doesn't have to be TV, it can be radio, it can be anything you want that just speaks to your ability as a writer. Fire it in and don't worry about it. And again, if we think that the pitch it is really good, and the writing is of a standard it's enough, and I'm sure it will be, we'll start having those conversations. It doesn't matter if you've not written for TV before. It just matters that you have a brilliant idea that we can sell.
Someone's asked us, it's initially for Ireland. How exclusive does the story have to be for that setting? So I think we're just saying that it has to be filmed on the island.
Yeah. And it's going to have to be the story. The idea itself should have a universal appeal to it, because ultimately, like we said earlier, we want it to be in France, in Germany. We want it to be picked up in, different countries, and for them to make their own version. A great example, like one of the reasons why we got dead excited about doing this, and it really sort of pushes, is Criminal on Netflix. If you haven't watched it, that looks like it's brilliant. It's got a different top guest star every episode, closed episodes, but there's obviously a narrative that runs through the series, but every episode's super marketable because you've got a brand new guest star who's usually a big name. They're only there for a few days, which makes it entirely affordable because you only have to hire David Tennant for a handful of days rather than the length of a run. And then it's all set in an interrogation room, and the room that looks into the interrogation room. But they have made the exact same version with different storylines in France and Germany and Italy. And it's just the smartest. It's brilliant because it's a brilliant idea and it works really well in the UK. And it's super smart because it works exactly the same way in France and Germany, everywhere else. So it should be universal. We shouldn't hang it on anything Irish or Northern Irish, because that won't travel for us. That's
great. And I think that answers Kieran's question as well. Post it again, Kieran, if it doesn't. Margaret's asked, is there a preference for episodic narrative or serial? Or is it just down to the idea, as we said before, with the story engine?
As long as if your story ends after 6 episodes, we have to believe we can come back for a second series in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Or however many episodes.
yeah. We have to come back for 10 series. It's a big ask, but that's what we need. So you just have to. It can't be over when it's over. It has to. We have to be able to keep going, because that's where it all gets really exciting and really interesting. You get to tell the stories over a long period of time, and your idea has to stand up to being able to be that it can last 2 series, 3 series, 4 series, which is why we keep talking about story engine. It doesn't run out. Another one to look at would be The Mentalist, which is relatively recent. It's just recently stopped being made, but when it first came out, it was about a serial killer called Red John and a mentalist, a sleight of hand magician, and a guy who, the serial killer killed his wife and kid. So he then gives up his life being a con man, joins the police to help them, but with a view to trying to hunt down the serial killer. And I watched that for series after series, and every time they brought the Red John character in, it was brilliant. But Red John wasn't in every episode, but it made you wait, like, oh, there's always a clue towards Red John. All right. So it's a giant conspiracy spread across all these stories of the day, sort of thing. And it was, it ran and ran and ran until it ran out of steam. So it's thinking like that.
Lovely. Mike's asked, do you have an age demographic that you're targeting?
Nope.
No.
Think so? No.
Nice and simple? No. And Michael's asked, is it strict linear narrative important, or are you open to the idea of flexibility within a story?
As long as the flexibility doesn't carry you out.
Yeah.
Like as long as you can keep watching it, it doesn't become a gimmick. Like you couldn't do, I don't think, well, maybe you could, you guys are better at it than me. Maybe like Memento. I couldn't see Memento as a TV series because eventually your brain would explode. So I don't see that running for, 6 1 hours and then coming back. Maybe it does. Maybe there's a way of doing it. But whatever your hook is can't be gimmicky, because gimmicky stuff gets tiring. It's like hearing the same punchline over and over again. So it's just being aware of that.
Susan's asked a question, are teen main characters okay? She's thinking of the story engine of Veronica Mars, which while it was teens had a large adult audience.
Teens is harder, I think. I mean, I actually don't know. So it's a good idea. If you've got an idea, submit it and we'll have a look. None of the stuff we've been looking at is teen related, and certainly there aren't any, we're not pitching into any teen sort of slots. So it's worth keeping that. I mean, everything, well, unless you like the daytime stuff isn't even teen, the daytime stuff isn't even really teen centric.
The broader an idea is, the more we'll like it. But that doesn't mean, like as hinted at the question, it doesn't mean things involving teens can't be broad. Like you could say Buffy, or you could say sex education. These things have all got a big audience. So, but just keep in mind that we are looking for the broadest possible audience. That's our aim here.
Neve's asked a couple of questions. I think I can see them. First of all, do you have an idea of how many episodes per season that you're thinking initially?
It totally depends. There's those different genres within this that we've broken down, all have different runs associated with them. So that's led by the idea. As long as it fits into that brief, it can be a different length for a different slot.
And it looks like the sort of minimum currently doing the rounds is about 4. Seems to be what's popular at the moment, but that's not to say that it's not 6 or 12 or 8 or whatever.
Lovely. And she's also asked, eventually, do you see a writing room being set up ultimately?
Yeah. I mean, if we can get something, so ultimately, if we can get something commissioned, then you suddenly have the ability to do lots of different things. And I think putting together a writer's room with writers that each have an episode of the show working together to crack the series arc and all that sort of stuff will become really interesting, and we'll get us better results, more voices. I think it'll be really exciting. Much further down the road, got to get something commissioned first, but yes, a writer's room would be class.
Daniel's asked us to give the genres and examples again. Daniel, they'll all be on the webpage, so you'll be able to get those. The ones that Matt covered earlier, they'll all be down there.
Tell Daniel we don't remember anything we say. Everything has to be written down, because none of us can repeat any of this, because we won't remember it when we get off the phone.
Luckily, this will be recorded and put up, I think, on the YouTube channel. So if you're furiously taking notes and missing it, then don't worry about it. Any budgetary limitations to be aware of? I think you touched on that briefly, that it's not going to be huge, but there's these sort of any kind of stories that you would imagine that would be out of budget.
I mean, I think just being responsible with your idea is the way to go, rather than me picking it. Like, nothing that Jerry Bruckheimer would want to make. There's no massive car chases and where they explode into trucks carrying fuel, and we're not sending rockets into space. It's just, we're going to make it here. So some of the examples Matt gave was like Blood, Guilt, Channel 5 has done some really good ones, Cold Call, things like that. That's not to say they have to be of that size and scale, but we have to be able to realize them in such a way that they look and sound and feel amazing. And if all your money's getting into like a 2-minute car chase on the Armour Road, would be chinned, So it's worth thinking about what your idea is, and it's writing from that pragmatic point of view, rather than, usually anytime I was in any of these things, they used to say, just write what you want, just let your imagination run wild. That's not our brief. Our brief is be specific. We want to get it made. We want to get it sold and made. Do the best version of something that we can put on screen. So it's much easier that way.
The more affordable is a bonus in the way that broad audiences as well. We will look at ideas in a better light if we can see how we can afford to make them. But
I mean, they obviously don't write with a budget in mind, but just write responsibly with, this will be made here potentially, and at a time when there's not, budgets are getting shrunk all over the place. So if you've written something that's really, I won't even say ambitious, because we really want ambitious ideas, but if it's elaborate for no valid reason, then we won't be able to sell it, so we'll have to turn it down. It might be the best idea, and it might need to go to like a Left Bank or a Blueprint or somebody big, but it won't be right for us.
Michael's asked if non-successful applicants to this sort of prize would be able to apply to a potential writer's room in the future, and I would say very much yes. If your idea doesn't quite fit the bill, but your writing sample is, demonstrates a really good ability, then that wouldn't exclude you from being, applying to be in a writer's room sometime in the future, should it happen.
Yeah.
Somebody else has asked again, how many ideas can you submit? As many as you want, as long as you do them individually. So one idea, one sample, and you can use the same sample of writing for each idea.
Better if you did use the same sample of writing. So pick your favorite sample. Send as many ideas as you want, but one sample of writing would be useful, because we'll be reading for the rest of our lives. And
Michael again has asked, does the pitch need to include long-term projection for the story engine? No.
No, I mean, for me, it's like saying, it's that Brimstone nonsense idea, which is, he's a detective, he gets killed, he goes to hell, he comes back and he's hunting demons to get his life back. That is a pitch where we can go, oh, I could see how that might work. Could we sell it? Could we not? It doesn't really, you don't need to do much more work than that for us to get a sense of, oh, I see how this works. This is what's happening in this show. Or even if it's Remington Steele and you're pitching, the fake characters who's just taken seriously, and a con man assumes the identity, and now they're forced to solve crimes together. That's enough for us to go, all right, that'd work. I can see how that works. Let's have a conversation now about all the other bits before you go to so much trouble of trying to map all that out. Let's get into that. I know that's harder than the other bits, and it's hard to bring something down to that, but that's the only bit we really want to hear this early doors is, what about something like this? It's like a 3-line pitch, whatever you need to do to get that line out, and then we can take it from there. Lovely.
So there's a couple of queries there about submitting as part of the process. Do we need to have a CV? Do we need to have a writer bio? The answer's no at this stage. What I think we're kind of looking at doing is kind of long listing first, and we may ask you to have a quick chat at that stage before we shortlist, and we may ask for further details from you at that point. But for the initial submission, it's just your idea and your sample of writing.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to it, we'll judge you on your idea and your sample of writing, not your CV anyway.
Yeah.
It's the truth.
There's a couple of questions which all kind of relate to eligibility in terms of where you're from and where you live. And it's quite sort of clear with that. You must have been either, and the writer must have either been born in Northern Ireland or the Republic of Ireland, or you must be living here now. I've seen some sort of things where there's people have Irish passports because their parents were born here and things like that. Would you agree that it needs to be born here or currently residing?
Oh, that's very clear on that. They're the two things.
Yeah, and we're working with NI screening these things, and it's important that those guidelines are adhered to.
And again, there's a few sort of questions around the sort of process and the development. So initially for this prize, we will be, as I said, picking a maximum of 6 ideas, and we will ask you to write a treatment. We won't have any involvement in that. You'll go away, for 3 weeks or something like that, write the treatment and send that back into us, and we will review that. And at that point, we will then pick the best of those, or a maximum of 3 of those. And then the team here at Stellify, including Kieran, Matt and myself, will then work, after we've optioned the idea at that point, we will then work on the pilot script going forward. And so we would option it. Somebody's asked there, how long do we plan to option the idea for? Do you have a feel of that yet? It's something that we haven't, said whether it's going to be 6 months, a year, 2 years. Do you have any view?
I don't at the moment. We'll come back to you with more detail on that.
Yeah.
But it'll be a limit. I mean, like all things.
Sorry, go on, Kieran.
So say like all things, it'll be a limited option, and we'll choose the time we think we need to try and sell the thing. And if we can't sell it, then the options, it'll run out.
But I think we can make that decision now, and we can make that decision and post it up on the frequently answered questions on the website. So we'll do that today or tomorrow and post it up there.
Very interesting question. Are you open to foreign language films, for instance, filmed in Ireland but spoken in Swedish, for example?
Honestly, open to anything if the idea is good. But if it relies on it, it's hard to sell elsewhere. And that's the thing that it's important to keep in mind. It's not that if that's the hook, then. But if the hook is just somebody who's not from somewhere, speaking a different language, living somewhere else, that can be replicated anywhere. That's pretty universal. But it's just making sure the hook doesn't limit it, that we can't sell it internationally. And if it lends itself to a good story, we definitely look at it. I mean, we're being very specific with the brief, but I don't want to be specific with the ideas, because you sort of want the ambition of people taking funny left turns and all that sort of stuff. So you get things that you weren't expecting, and it just has to be within our brief, because that's what we're heading out to sell. But within that, as much creativity and as mad as you want to be is definitely worth doing. And then, as you said, Janine, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't mean if we like the writing, then if there's a writer room later on, we can always, the creativity will stand out even if we can't sell the thing, or the writing sample will stand out even if we can't sell the idea. So it's not a one-hit thing. You didn't land it in your cast aside.
Someone's asked about animation. Could a project include animation, or is that outside of this brief?
Do you mean include it like Roger Rabbit?
Well, it actually says, could it be animation or include animation? So yes, Roger Rabbit is perfect.
it can't be animation.
But it could be. Have you seen Happy on? Is it Netflix or Prime? Happy's really good. It's really, it looks super expensive though, but it is a really good series. I highly recommend Happy. It's a part animation toy unicorn, and the big burly guy from SUV. It's really, really good. It looks super expensive, but that idea plays into he's having some sort of mad breakdown. I can see his child's imaginary friend. It's really, really good, really dark, really funny. So yes, but also it'll never be a cartoon. We'll never do any animation in that respect because that's not what people are asking us to pitch in.
Mike's asked if the writing sample could be from a published novel. Or are you looking for screen or theatre writing in particular as a sample?
I mean, Janine, you can take your own view on it. I'm happy to read a writing sample of anything. Yeah. Because just because you didn't write in that sort of particular genre doesn't mean you're capable of doing it. But I'm happy to be led by you on that, Janine.
Lovely. All right. And then, are you open to musicals? That could be, if it's dark enough.
Wow.
I don't know. Is the other? I mean, again, if you think that musical can run for 6 series without people going, "Oh, I do not want to build a snowman," thanks. I don't know. Will it ever become annoying? Because it's I don't know. I don't know. Is the truth. But I mean, within our brief, if you think it fits, pitch it with ambition and a bit of energy, and maybe we'll believe you.
Yeah. If it hits the returnable, the high concept, the crime-led, and contemporary.
And it might be a brilliant idea. It just might be that we can't sell it, but we'll still tell you it's a brilliant idea if we think it's a brilliant idea. And that's our method for choosing these things is never going to. It's not like I don't like it, I do like it. Oh, I think this is good or bad or indifferent. It always starts with I think we can sell this. We should take this. So if you think that you can get over that bump, like if I pitch this musical, I think they can sell that musical, then pitch it in.
And is there scope for it to be a comedy crime show?
Yeah. Absolutely. Remington Steele was quite fun. I keep referencing. I haven't watched Remington Steele in 20 years, just so you know. But Remington Steele was humorous, as was like what do you call him with Bruce Willis? Moonlighting.
Yeah.
Moonlighting. Things like that with the kind of wry humor and the joke never runs out. Death in Paradise is actually quite funny in its own way. It's really enjoyable.
Lovely. I'm just trying to go through these to make sure that we've hit.
There's loads of questions. I didn't think we'd get this many. This is class.
I think
It's because I can't see anybody. It looks like we're just talking to ourselves.
I know. Is there an opportunity open to writer-directors? I mean, this is very early stage, I guess. Yes, I suppose at this stage.
Yes, for the writers, but for the
directors.
Part of what we have to do when we go to sell it is build a package to help sell the show. So if you are an unknown writer, then which is fine, which is grand, we'll be taking that in to say, okay, here's what it is. Usually what we find is a channel will want people in there that they go, okay, we've got an unknown writer who is the safe pair of hands to marshal this all the way through. It's no different when we do game shows and fact end. If someone's never done it before, you have to build a package around that person to build confidence with the broadcaster. So I'd say it's not just highly unlikely, it's impossible that we would take a writer-director who'd never done anything before and have them as a writer-director within this process, just because we can't sell that in. There's no comfort to the channel in that respect. So maybe further down the line, if we get a writer's room, we get a load of episodes, maybe these things all become possible, but certainly in this iteration, it's writers only.
There's a couple there around, can you submit a feature film draft as your sample of writing? Yes, that's fine. We'll look at that. Quite a specific question from Noel is that, you appreciate that we've given examples, but what would the thoughts be on sort of a love-hate type crime drama coming from the criminal POV?
Grand.
Yes, it's simple.
Yeah, love-hate was amazing. Absolutely amazing.
There's one there from Mairead who's asked if it's a joint submission. Can it be accepted provided that one of them is born in Northern Ireland? And I think we'll have to take that offline, Mairead, as well as there's another comment there. Sorry, it's anonymous. I don't know who it's wrong about, being an Irish passport holder. And I think we'll take that offline. We'll have a discussion and take advice and put it on the frequently asked questions. I think that's probably the best thing to do to give us a little bit of scope in investigating that. Aidan's asked, would you prefer TV pilot samples to spec screenplays? I guess, again, it's whatever your best example of your writing you feel is.
Yes, just sell yourself, whatever you think is best.
Yeah. And trying to find something that we haven't touched on. But I think we've covered an awful lot of it. Simon's asked, what if you do have a pilot already written? Can you submit as the sample piece? I'd say, I guess, yes, but this process is to write that pilot. But yeah, by all means, if that's what you have and that's what you've been working on and that's your best sample of writing, then
important that you own it, though. That's the thing, is that it's not written with partners, or it hasn't been optioned by anybody else, or it hasn't been seen by anybody else. So not anything that you've written that you've pitched around town. If you have pitched it around town, and we'd need to know all that going in, what the history of it is before you pitch it in. And then if you happen to have written something you think fits this brief, then yeah, as long as you can get the sort of pitch down to like a couple of lines that we go, okay, I can see how that works. Far away. If you think that's the best, if you think that pilot script is the best sample of your writing, then yeah.
There's a question here on how much, realistically, how much do you take past experience into consideration? And I think, we're not looking at past experience here, which is why we're not asking for CVs and writer bios at this stage, because we're just looking for the ideas. And you don't have to necessarily have experience to have a good idea. So we don't want to put off anybody, entering that perhaps hasn't got an agent, or, hasn't, written anything or had anything produced before. This is, really about the strength of your ideas, because, people who haven't got experience have good ideas, and we don't want to prevent anybody from entering who has a good idea.
Yeah, it's not a CV based opportunity. It's an idea. And if you've written something you think's good and we think it's good writing, then you're as qualified as everybody else. And
that goes the other way as well. You might be massively experienced, and you're still seeing that this is not a new writer competition. This is just an idea competition, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And somebody's asked about the where and when would the writer's room jobs be advertised. That potentially is way down the line, but again, it would be, in the same places that you saw this, the invitation for this webinar. It would be well publicised if we get to that point, and hopefully we will. And I think that's about anything. Oh, there's more coming in the bottom. I have a couple more. Let's have a look. Yes, I'll ask that one at the end. There's somebody's asked a question for the end there. Let's have a look. I think we've got.
Sounds ominous.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued by what the final question's going to be.
But so somebody's actually asked what the situation is regarding male-female representation, race diversity. Are there boundaries to make sure we hit? I think now the answer to that question is always, yes, you have to consider diversity, in all sort of in all areas. But for this, idea stage, just give us your idea. And when it comes to writing the pilot and further on down the line with casting and everything else, that will always be taken into consideration. Would you guys agree?
Yeah, I mean, in the early stages of this, it is just the idea of a story engine. I mean, when it comes to it, when we get to the other end of it, if we manage to find projects we like and we start writing them up, they will be reflective of the world we live in, because they should be and they need to be. But at this point, it's less character, it's less specifics, it's just the sort of picture of Remy Steele, that kind of thing. It's like I wouldn't get caught up in that just till we get to the other side of it, and then all those things will become apparent to us.
There's a couple of questions there, about specifics, about anything that you really don't want to see, because they're tired or cliched or overused. Is there anything that's going to kind of give you an eye roll?
I think no, not really. But anything outside of our brief, we won't look at. We'll just say thanks, but no thanks. Anything that's inside our brief that's about things that are culturally here that won't travel will also be a thanks, but we can't really use that, even though it is brilliant. We're not going to be able to take that elsewhere. But outside of that, everything's up for grabs.
Very interesting question, actually, one that I haven't considered. would you accept submissions from production companies with a view to co-producing? I would say at this stage we're looking for ideas that are owned by the writers.
Yes.
It's an original work that that a production company doesn't have a fingerprint on at this stage. Would that be right?
Yeah, no, yeah, we wouldn't. We're looking for individual writers, and part of this is when we come to the option stage and we start taking things to script and then start pitching with a view to getting it made and selling it internationally. It's important that the relationship is us and the writer, and a co-production relationship is very different. And it's not something we're looking at. I mean, it may be something we do further down the line, but right now, that's not what we're chasing.
Yeah, lovely. Somebody just put a message in there to say that they've just joined you to our commitments, and will this be on available? Yes, I believe it will be on the Stellify's YouTube channel at some point, probably tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that. And I think, I'm just keeping an eye on the time there, I think that's about everything. What I will say is when I go back to my emails on that slide there that you can all see, there's some really great questions there, things that we hadn't thought about at this point. So we will add some of the answers to the frequently asked questions that will come up on the website later today. So tomorrow.
What was the last question? Was it the production company one?
No, I'm gonna ask you it now. No, it wasn't. It was, and I can't remember who said it now because I've closed the chat thing down. What's your favourite film?
I
Yes, I was going to put you on the spot.
I have a million favourite films. Amelie is always my favourite film, and then underneath that, you've your Die Hards and your Casablancas and your, but Amelie's always my favourite film. I don't know why.
Matt?
It's not exactly crime ridden, but
there's one film poster in our house, and that is Night and Day, starring Tom Cruise and Cameron Diaz.
It's a good movie. There's a poster up in your house.
Yeah. That's how far the obsession's gone in our household.
It's a good movie.
Great movie.
A solid Tom Cruise movie, I have to say. I really enjoyed it. I wouldn't put a poster up, but I'm a fan of it.
Lovely, thank you. So everybody that's joined, well, actually everybody that's registered, so if anybody didn't make it today, tomorrow you'll receive a follow-up email which will have a link to the submission information. But as I said earlier, those who can't wait, it will be on the Stellify Media website today. If you go down to press releases, the information will be there, hopefully after 5 o'clock, if technology doesn't fail us. But as I said, any questions that I haven't answered today or that you've thought of as we've gone through, my email is there. Drop me an email and I will do my very best to answer it. So finally, I would like to thank Kieran and Matt for joining us and for getting this opportunity off the ground in the first place. And everybody that's joined us for your time today. We really are looking forward to reading your submissions and are excited to see what ideas you come up with. And so that's us for today. Take care and good luck. And we'll be speaking to you all soon. Bye.
You're good at this, Janine. Bye-bye.